Chinese community is. And today we have two Michaels here, Michael Miller and Michael Arias. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Why do you want to run for office? All right. What is in your soul that you say, I want to do that? And you want to, it's for Congress District 27. Tell us why you chose to do this.
I'm a lifelong Republican. I've lived in Miami-Dade County, primarily Coral Gables, for most of my life. My dad moved here in 1961 with the United States Air Force, fighter pilot. He drug his whole family down here. We've been here ever since. I've seen this county as well as the state grow, and it's become very diversified. And I love it because it's so vibrant now. But we have some major problems over the last 3 or 4 years that have really, really cropped up. And I felt the need to do something about it. I'm an attorney. That's all I've done. I've sworn an oath to the Constitution. And then I see things happening and I say, something needs to be done about this.
So you work for whom? The SEC?
I work for the United States Securities and Exchange Commission for about 6 years. Before that, I was as a prosecutor, actually, in Orange County, Florida, Orlando. So
let's get back. Why did you become an attorney?
That's a good question. It was also 35, 40 years ago.
Now, like 30 years later.
Yes, it was 35, 40 years ago, I think now. Again, I think it all goes back to my upbringing. I saw a lot of injustices before I even went to law school. And while I was in undergraduate, I was in finance. And I saw a lot of things happening in finance that, as a lawyer, I thought was important to go after. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what I remember from 35 years ago.
That we recognize sometimes you got to go through the school to get a position or title, so that people will listen to you a little bit more than if you didn't do that.
Right. Well, I went through, I think, 4 or 5 different majors before I settled on law. So I started out at University of Vermont as a biology major. I ended up in finance, and then I became a lawyer. So
still trying to figure it out.
Still trying to figure. And 35 years later, or 41 years later, I've decided my career as a lawyer has made me really competent to do what my next career path wants to be, which is to run for politics, run for Congress, try and straighten things out. I am a lawyer. I understand the rulemaking process in Congress better than most people. So I think I have a lot more to offer. I'm also at the end of my legal career, and I think it's...
Did you tell your wife that?
Yeah, she didn't buy it.
So if you could, let's say you're in Washington, and you can push a magic button, what's the conversation look like? This is what I'd like to talk about, and this is what I'd like to try to get done.
Well, I think we have to look inside what's happening in our country, and especially in our county. Again, I bought my house in 1987. My real estate taxes are grandfathered in. They're extremely low. But if I decide to move, my real estate taxes, even if I downsize, are going to triple, quadruple. That's one problem. The second thing, of course, is the housing affordability. My house is now worth 20, 30 times what it was when I purchased it, and it's because of the housing problem that we have here in Miami-Dade County.
Affordability.
Affordability.
And that is a big word nowadays, and that includes the cost of housing for everybody, all right, and the cost of keeping that house going.
Well, not just the maintenance, but how about the insurance? And I go back to my own experience. And of course, I talk to people around the county too, but my experience is not it's the same as everybody. I have flood insurance because I live in Coconut Grove. My flood insurance, 15 years ago was $1,000 a month. Today it's $12,000 a month. My Citizens 10 years ago was $7,000. Last year it was $12,000. This year I got my bill, it's $15,000. And then, of course, you got your liability insurance, and then you got your car insurance. At the end of the day, I don't know how most people can afford to live in this county if they have insurance. And that brings us up to the next problem. A lot of my friends are going without insurance. And we've been so fortunate that the last big hurricane, the major one was Hurricane Andrew, which I lived through. that destroyed so many houses. People without insurance. If we have another one like that, this county is going to be in a deep hurt. And another reason they're going to be in a deep hurt is FEMA has now been reduced significantly. So if I go to Congress, that's some of the things. Get FEMA back up and running. So it's efficient. It's efficient, but it covers and helps the people it's designed to help.
So along that level, what do we get about healthcare? The type of coverage you get, the cost of that, and access to that.
Well, that is the other problem we have is healthcare. Right now, the Republicans have been working on a plan for, I think, 20 years now, and I think we now have a framework of a concept. My personal feeling is until we get that framework concept worked out into a really solid plan, we have to leave the Obamacare in place. And I think we're seeing a lot of the Republicans now switch over to that thought, but not a lot, at least 6. In October, all the Republicans voted against extending it.
By the way, how many Congress people are there?
It's like 435.
How many people on a jury?
12. Well, it depends on what kind of. If you're talking about a life, a felony homicide, you're talking 12. Otherwise, it's 6.
So when you were a prosecutor, did you go to court?
Yes.
And how many people were on the jury?
Generally 6.
And how many of those people did you have to convince to see it your way?
6.
Okay. Compared to 400 and something.
Right.
How does one do that? To bring up your point, working with people from all over the aisle, your party, the other party, so that you can work out something that would be effective.
Well, you know what? Up until about 10 years ago, we had that ability. We compromised, and we came to an agreement. And it's usually between the two parties, the Democrats and Republicans. Independents, they may have been the swing vote on some things, but it usually was because the two sides sat down and realized if you don't do anything, everyone hurts. If you compromise, maybe some people don't like it, but the majority of our citizens get the help that they need. And the laws that are passed are for the majority without hurting the minority. And that's the big dilemma.
So often we don't remember from years past about the government shutting down or almost shutting down. It makes great headlines. Everybody loves to write those headlines, and the world's going to end. And then a week or 2 or 3 weeks later, it all goes in. Well, when the government shuts down, I think about all those government workers that didn't get paid then, all those people that are providing products and services and money to those people, the people that have to have both people working. And I'm thinking, well, what does it take so that the people are not going to make us, the citizens, suffer while they work out their plan? How do you make that happen?
You make it happen by working it out before it becomes an emergency. And we have been kicking, I say, the proverbial can down the road for years now, for the last 10 years, on important issues. And we just have to stop doing that. And what that takes is for people in Congress to grow a backbone. And what I mean by that is when the party tells them jump and your conscience says don't jump, you have to say to your party, I'm not jumping. And we've seen that happen. I think it's Thomas Tills in the Senate has grown a backbone. In the last, he's only got 300 and some odd days left of his service as a senator because he's retiring. But I think you'll see more and more Republicans say, okay, we need to take back some responsibility as Congress, members of Congress. We have to take back responsibility and say no to some things, yes to some things, and negotiate so that everybody gets what they need. And we don't have that right now, which is why I'm running. I'm passionate about the fact that we need to do something. Let me say something. I'm in my 5th or 6th career now. I don't need the job as a congressman. A lot of Congress people, I suspect that they want to be senators, and some of those senators want to be presidents. In fact, I know that's true because you see it every day. Then you see some congressmen, I guess they get that feeling of power and they stay in the office for 30 years. I'm not there. I don't want it. What I want to do is get in there, fix it, and get out. I don't need a career politician of 30 years to feel satisfied.
Miami-Dade County, in the old regime for many, many years, a lot of the county commissioners are here for decades.
Right.
And there is some good part of that. Now it's 8 years so far. I suspect there's some changes coming in very shortly.
Right.
When I look at it, I say, well, what's the advantage of having somebody in for 8 years maximum? Because they're going to hurry and get it done.
Right.
Because they know their time is very, very limited. And I think that's an important part in most offices, that you have all these younger people that have some good ideas that want to get in there. They can't get in because somebody's been in office for 25 years. Very hard to compete with that.
Well, and if you know that your term is coming up in 8 years or 10 years, not only do you fight harder to get things done quicker, but you're less prone to having somebody threaten you and say, you know, if you don't do what I ask you to do, I'm going to hurt you in the primaries. You know, I'm going to get somebody else to take your place.
Yeah, it's pretty tough when we see that happen, and people get afraid, they get intimidated. By the way, we're running your web address, so if people want to go to, they go to Arias4Congress.com.
That's where they need to go. They'll see all these stories about me and what I truly believe in with this.
And it costs money to run.
It does.
A lot. So you have the cash part, meaning what the actual cost. Then you have, I can't be working as much as I was before because I want to go out and spend my time telling people what I'd like to do and asking questions. So if somebody sees you later today or tomorrow and they say, Michael, so you're running for office, so what are you staying for? What are you going to say to us?
I want your support. And I get a lot of friends that say, I'm going to give you my support. But my next thing to them is, I love your support. I need your money. And I need you to donate. And I need you to donate as much as you can or as little as you want. But donate anyway. If 100,000 people donate $20 each, I'll win this thing.
There's an old saying that a lot of people are doing this during the pandemic. I owe you $100,000. What's the least you'll take before you will forever hate me?
Right, exactly.
So folks, you know, and there's a great presentation there. Whatever works for them. If somebody wants to assist you, what could they do besides the money part?
Well, they could go to my website. We have a volunteer tab, and you can volunteer to help me out. It's my first time running. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think it's important. So if somebody wants to help me, go to my website, go to the volunteer tab, volunteer, I'll get in touch with you, and we can discuss what you can do for me. Eventually, I'm going to need people to help me walk around and knock on doors, because that's important nowadays, to show your face to your constituents and so they get an idea who you are, unlike some other people who don't knock on doors anymore.
For years, the VA hospitals across the country were suffering terribly, bad service, you know, just, it was awful. And it's gotten fixed a lot. But what can we do to make sure the people that risk their lives, and many of them are disabled because of that service, what is it that we can do as a country to make sure that we take care of them?
Well, my father is a veteran. He's dead now. He died in 2017, but he flew for the United States Air Force, fighter jets. He actually came down here for the Cuban problem that occurred in the early 60s. We need to take care of those people. I mean, they are why we can do what we do today. They're why I can go out and vote. And we owe them everything. So I really think it's important that if they need funding, they get it. There's so many other programs that we fund that just, it lines the pockets of other people, but it doesn't help the people who truly need it. So if you're asking about VA as a congressman, obviously I'm going to try and get them as much money, as much help as they can get, because they truly are the needy of our society.
We brought that up. Lots of times people have behavioral health issues, mental health issues. Historically, the United States and the insurance companies have really taken advantage of people that in their healthcare, in their mental health care coverage, very limited.
Right.
What is it that we can do so that people that need it the most at the most critical time have access to that care?
Well, I think it's a problem we need to deal with the insurance companies, and that doesn't just encompass mental health, it encompasses your physical health. As of today, it's extremely expensive to fund your health insurance. That shouldn't be. We need regulations, and this is horrible coming from a Republican who believes that less government is better, but there are certain areas that the government has to step in. That's why we have a national government, a federal government. And one of those is healthcare. I'm not saying that we should have a socialist healthcare system, because then we lose our good doctors, possibly. But we can certainly work with the insurance companies, even if it's a regulatory aspect, to make them include mental health as well as physical health. Look, mental health is getting to be a very big problem in our United States, especially with our younger kids. A lot of our kids that went through COVID were isolated for 2 or 3 years. A lot of them have mental problems, that they have social problems. They don't socialize. When you don't socialize, you get frustrated. When you get frustrated, you get mad. When you get mad, you do things you probably shouldn't do. And if we can get to them early enough, using insurance or whatever programs we can have to get them mentally fit again, that saves us a lot more money down the road. Sort of like, I guess, the obesity problem. If you're taking Ozempic, 2 years ago, it was $1,000 a month. The insurance companies wouldn't pay for it. Well, the benefit of Ozempic is you take a 300-pound person, you take them down to 180 pounds. Suddenly their heart's doing much better, so you don't have to have as many heart transplants. The benefits of the future are so far outweigh the expense. But of course, that's going to take some sort of regulation to get the insurance companies to realize, because they're looking at today's dollars, not tomorrow's dollars. And that's what the government's for, is to look at tomorrow's dollars.
You know that autism and other related similar illnesses, it's massive. We have and as far as how it affects the child and the young adults, but the family units. We're close to Rabbi Yossi Harlech in the Friendship Circle, where they built a facility there to take care of people of all ages that have autism. And again, we have a weekly show on autism, hosted by Autism Dad. That's where I met quite accidentally, or coincidentally, or just at a meeting we're having here that we were talking about Autism Awareness Month, which is in April. He happened to walk in the door. And I said, "Oh, you're now one of our speakers." To it. So we recognize that education of the people that are surrounded, or that friends of theirs have children that are autistic, and the adults, and how we take care of the children that need it, and the education and the diagnosis, but also to the parents and the siblings of these children that have it. I hope that if you get an office, you pay a lot of attention to people on the spectrum, because it will make a difference. We 3.5 years ago, a gentleman comes in, he says, "My son has autism. He graduated from such and such a college in videos. Do you have any internships?" And my only experience at that point was like Asperger's. I said, "He's not going to start screaming, is he?" And he goes, "No." And this man, father, takes out the camera, his phone, to show me some of the videos he did. And I started leaning over. I said to myself, "Michael, don't look at it. You cannot waste this moment on looking at the quality of this thing in this 5 seconds." So, okay, we're going to do it. 3 days, 4 hours a day. Well, at the end of the first day, we offered him a job. He was here for 3 years. And when he left for another job, I called the father and I said, "Listen, I want you to know that the gift your son gave us is we now have a show on autism. Because you never know when it's going to impact us." And Emily was here when we worked with this young man, to watch him grow, because he got into a loving environment and with his peers, right? And I watched him, how he got along, the growth. And if you look over there, there's a thing up there. What he did is, those are like cartoon characters,
Right.
And he put the heads of the hosts on those people, right? So he got this whole thing. And it took me, and some of us, we'd always use the suffix, so-and-so, the one with autism. And when he said to myself, "When are we going to stop saying that?" Mostly to myself. It took me 2 years of that constant exposure. and it's a critical end, and it's important to more people than they want to admit.
Well, I have a son, 22 years old. He's graduating from University of Miami this May in cinematography. One of his first internships was a couple of years ago during the summer, and it was a documentary on an orphan drug, a single orphan drug that will never make it out of the FDA, but is a very important drug. And so they did a documentary on it. So he's following the same footsteps. I probably should send him over here for a job interview, but we'll see what happens. But autism, we have some people in the government saying autism is caused by vaccines. And I've never seen, and they've never presented evidence that that's the occurrence. Now, I don't think there's any doubt that the diagnosis of autism has increased tenfold. And my only concern is that because we're better at diagnosing it and seeing it, because I go back to ADHD, 10 years ago, that became the big thing. Everyone had, every kid had ADHD or it was diagnosed with that. But I'm sure when I was growing up at Coral Gables Senior High that at least half the students there had ADHD, including me. We were all wild back then. But we weren't diagnosed with that because it wasn't a symptom. So how much of autism now is being diagnosed because we've raised the spectrum level, because we're seeing it a little more and understanding the disease a little more? So it's important that we diagnose it, but it's also important to understand that we've probably been living with it for many years, and vaccines are not the cause of it.
So Carlos Mugoy, the CEO of Jackson, who's retiring soon, he was one of our guests, and I asked him, I said, what do you do for people with autism? And he starts telling me, he said, Michael, back when we were kids, we would call them slow. And he said that was wrong for us to say that. As soon as he said that, I was, oh my God, all those people that it was like, and we thought it was contagious. You got to stay away from them. If people get a chance, go to Friendship Circle, everything online and take a look at it. I've been there and watched these kids, all different levels, and how we can really help as a community and help them go to the best they can be. So at your ripe young age on a new subject, you decide you want to be involved on this different level.
Yeah, let me say one more thing. I think it's important for our government to step back in on healthcare. I think we've cut the programs to the point where it's going to be very dangerous for our society. So I think that we need, Congress needs to step up and again, get a backbone and say, you can't do this. You can't cut all the physicians that know about, at CDC, the ones that know about Ebola or these viruses. You just can't cut them out and put them in place with people who don't believe in science. But that's Congress's fault for allowing that to happen. And that's why I want to run for this, because I don't have the need to have somebody tell me, we're going to support you. I believe that if I do my constituents right, they'll vote me back in, regardless of what anybody else threatens me with. And that's why I'm running, because I think I can give the backbone back to Congress. At least I can make that effort. And I think that's important for somebody to try. If I don't try, then it won't happen. And I think everybody that is thinking about running, for politics needs to make that decision early on. Regardless of what pressure somebody else puts on me, I have to vote my conscience.
So better you tried and failed than never to have tried.
Absolutely.
And I think that's good. That's humbling, and it's people can call it advice, but whatever. I remember when my wife told me that, I said, you are right? And so it's okay to fail. You go out and you do your stuff.
You learn from failure. That's the most important part of life is trying, failing, and then trying again. Now, some people try, fail, and give up. That's wrong. You got to try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. And I've been doing that for 35, 40 years because I'm a litigator. You fail occasionally.
Yeah. So nearby there's a what's called the Unity Room, and it's for people with all sorts of addictions, all of them. They got everyone. And what happens? People from around the county go to and they rent out an hour or two, whatever. I mean, it's from alcohol, drugs,
Mhm.
um, sex, overeating. There's about 10 of them that they've been able to get some funding from the state, which many times also comes down from Washington. But it's really the attention that gets paid to it. That's the one that's going to work. So I hope you get in there. You pay attention to South Florida and the people that need it. We know there's a healthcare mental health building that the county built a couple of years ago. It's been empty for 2 years. Empty.
Right.
So Judge, I'm sorry, I forgot his last name, was one that orchestrated that. So I hope the county funds it and then maybe find somebody to operate that. And where are the people going to come from? A lot of them are going to come right out of the jails where they're not getting treatment. They're getting this minimum, on alert all the time, afraid they're going to be killed, which only worsens their mental health
Right.
condition. There's a National Alliance for Mental Illness. Susan Rachel was one of the volunteer people. Oops, okay.
Uh-oh.
One of the volunteer presidents down here.
Mm-hmm.
And her son had a schizophrenic break many, many years ago. And she said he'd like to come in and sing. I said, okay. Came in. And, oh, by the way, he just got his master's and he works in the arena. And he came in, his mother was sitting there and Matt was sitting right over there. And he playing the guitar. You were not alone. And when he was singing that, his mother was crying, I'm crying, and I'm imagining this young man walking without shoes and without a shirt on Biscayne Boulevard. I don't know that's what happened, but I know in my heart.
We've seen him out there.
Yes.
Maybe not Matthew, but we've seen other people
Yes.
like that.
And so I hope you pay a lot of attention to that because it's really a gigantic need here. Of course, we have the Everglades and we need to protect and sea change. I'm not really up on it a lot, but we know there's a challenge. And tell us about what you think you might be able to do with that.
Yeah, like I said, I've been here since '61. My dad moved to the Gables on a canal in 1966. And you can see every year the water's getting higher and higher, and it's coming over the seawall now. So we've got a climate problem that is causing our oceans to rise. And some people call it warming, until last week when all the iguanas fell out of the trees, which, by the way, is good. We should have something like that every 2 or 3 years. Get the iguana population under control. But climate change is real, and we have to start paying attention to it. And again, this goes back to Congress. I'm pretty sure most in Congress know that there is an environmental problem that the world is facing.
Yeah, lots of times people are unaware of this, but in the Everglades is a crisis. It's mid-crisis right now, which is those pythons have eaten all the bunny rabbits, all the deer. They're eating now. They're starting to eat the babies of other pythons. That affects the hawks and the vultures that are there. Mm-hmm. So it is a crisis in the works. And what the biologists hope is that there'll be some virus that'll come along and start killing them.
When my son was a Cub Scout, we went out camping in the Everglades because the Cub Scouts or the Boy Scouts had a camp out there. And the last time we went was probably 10 years ago. And what was amazing about it was when I was a Boy Scout and I camped out in the Everglades, you had to put all your stuff up because the raccoons had come in. And if the raccoons didn't, all sorts of animals would attack your food at night. But we didn't see any raccoons. We didn't see any birds. There was no life. And that was 10 years ago. So it's only gotten worse. So the problem is, it's sort of like the problem we have out in the ocean with the lionfish. I have a lot of friends who are spear fishermen, and they go out and their coral reefs are being decimated by lionfish. So what do? Well, the best thing you can do with lionfish is get people to eat them. Of course, they are poisonous, so you have to cut them up real carefully, but have them eat it. Pythons is a whole different story. The only thing that's going to get rid of them that I see is about 3 or 4 months of really cold weather because they will die on cold weather. But my understanding is they are moving further north and they are decimating our wildlife, natural wildlife.
The panthers that are out there, there will only be less. Because the pythons are eating their food.
Well, they're eating the deer. I mean, the pythons are eating the deer. So, it's a problem.
So my daughter, age 30-something, she's been sort of like hated to get her hands dirty. We have a video of her in the Everglades wearing boots, python hunting with her husband. I said, "Oh my God, what are you doing?"
So she got a license?
So it was. She had a great time. So here we are. The election is a few months away.
Right.
So you're going to be knocking on doors, or how do you do this? How do you get people to learn about you and you to figure out what people want?
Well, I show up on programs like this. I go to every chamber event that I can go to. Tonight I'll be going to the Federal Judiciary Bar event. And I just meet people, and I tell them who I am and what I stand for. And there are some people that look at me and say, I don't want to vote for you. And then there's some people that say they do want to vote for me. And my response to the people who say, I don't want to vote for you because I don't like your politics, that's fine. I don't expect to win every vote. However, if I win, I do expect to represent them. I'm not going to say you didn't vote for me, so you're off my radar. So I'm doing that. I'm sending out emails. I'm sending out making podcasts, not so much podcasts, but YouTubes and TikToks, going around to different parts of the county. And like I said, in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'll start knocking on doors. Got a list of all the Republicans who have voted in primaries in the past, and those are the primary people I need to speak to now, because I need to get past the primary before I have to start worrying about the elections in November.
We poll a lot of people, and we ask them why they voted for the person, whoever it is. And most of the time, it's nothing to do with politics. It is they're friendly, they're funny, they're nice looking, they came by, they had a conversation, they asked me a bunch of questions. Because at the end of the day, you think all the county commissioners, are 13 of them, lots of people, they don't know. They would ask a friend, who do you think I should vote for? And people want somebody that's friendly, approachable. Are the politics important? Yeah, but I suspect that that's in case there's nothing else. Right? But there has to be that other thing.
I think the most important thing is people feel like I'm listening to them. Because I can tell them what my politics are, but I need to find out what they need, what they want, what they need to survive. Because right now, Miami-Dade County, if you want to rent a house or a condo, you better be making a lot of money now.
Yes.
The affordability is terrible. So I need to find out from people, is that your top issue, or is it immigration because you're afraid? And the problem, I guess one of the things is illegal immigrants aren't going to vote for me. They shouldn't be voting for anybody.
Right.
So, do you try and tap into that fear because they might have 40,000 voters that are Venezuelan that are U.S. citizens that are going to vote for you because they're Venezuelan, because you believe in immigration or you don't believe in immigration? It's the only way for me to find that out is to knock on a door, ask a person, what are the issues that are important to you? Not what are important to me. I know the issues that are important to me, but that doesn't mean there's 40,000 or 100,000 people out there that have the same desires.
You remind me of an interview I did with Rabbi Manis Friedman, one of the YouTube's #1 rabbi, Orthodox. He wrote a book called The Joy of Intimacy. And I said, Rabbi, I was holding my wife's hand the other day. I had this moment of intimacy. How can I get more of that? And this is what he said, Michael, it ain't about you. It's about her.
Ask her.
Michael, thank you for being
so much
here.
For having me here.
My pleasure. Again, folks, where are we? Let's look at the camera over there. Michael, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to tell them why they should vote for you.
You should vote for me because I care about this community. I care about this state, and I care about this country. All the other issues are not important enough for me to give up trying to help you get what you need in this community.
Okay. As we wrap it up, first of all, thank you all for joining us. And my brother Gren and I subscribe to the Disney rule, which